This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is up, everybody? Big game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk today. The Jets looking to get back in the win column tonight, and they host the Washington Capitals this evening, the only team with a better record and more points in the National Hockey League than Winnipeg heading into tonight. So it is one in the East versus one in the West. But with the Dallas Stars charging another win last night, a very, very important 2 points on the table for Winnipeg as they look to lock down first place in the Central Division and in the Western Conference. Lots of work left to do during this final stretch run to game number 82. Of course, the Caps come into town with Alex Ovechkin, number 2 in all-time NHL scoring, 6 back of Wayne Gretzky. The record, in all likelihood, barring something crazy, will not go down tonight. But the Capitals, not just Ovi, have been one of the great stories in the National Hockey League this season. Nobody had them being at the top of the league all season long after being the final team to qualify for the playoffs last year. And now, as we'll talk to Stephen Whyno, first team ever to go from the 16th team to book their spot to the playoffs to the first team the next year. The Jets can be the second team, though, to book their playoff ticket with points tonight in the game. Caps are coming in great. They've won 4 in a row. They've won 9 of their last 10. And, of course, the Jets very much looking for a rebound after a 5-3 loss to the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday afternoon, thanks to James Reimer, who did it again to Winnipeg. Luckily, James Reimer's playing on the Buffalo Sabres. That will not be an issue come playoff time. But you don't want to look back at that game going, what could have been if things get tighter with the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets in the Central Division. Big night for Connor Hellebuyck coming up, the 54th start of the season. He was working with Wade Flaherty to fine-tune his game, getting ready for this stretch. And, of course, the first game without Gabriel Vilardi, who was announced yesterday as out week to week with an injury. I'll just touch on this right now. We really don't have any clarification on this, and we'll work for more to it. There was a report yesterday from John Liu of TSN that many of you saw that basically said that Vilardi was out for the season and likely the playoffs. That was up for a while, and then it got taken down. There certainly was nothing out of the skate today that, I'm not sure that was followed up on. I mean, I believe what the team is saying, that it is week to week. Listen, just the even thought of Gabriel Vilardi not being available for the playoffs is a concerning one. And I guess, until he's back on the ice, that has to be a possibility. But as far as people saying that he has been ruled out for the playoffs, that is not the case as we go to air today. And, hoping that Gabriel Vilardi will get back potentially even before the end of the season, but certainly for some whiteouts here in Winnipeg. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us a little bit later on today, and we'll also get into the amazing season that this Washington Capitals team has with our pal Stephen Whyno. First up, though, we're going to head downtown, hear from Scott Arniel and Nikolaj Ehlers on tonight's big tilt between the Winnipeg Jets and the Washington Capitals. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, shout out to everybody in chat. Great to see you all here. Hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And a big shout out to you podcast listeners. Great to have you along for the ride as well before this big one tonight, just after 7 o'clock at Canada Life Center. Huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Rollies Transfer, Canadian Club, St. Vital Dental Center and Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, the Winnipeg Jets, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course we'll get to a Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get her going. Big one tonight downtown. 1 versus 2 in the NHL. Michael Remis, how you feeling?
Feeling okay. Just started going through highlights of Ovechkin scoring some milestone goals in the past against the Jets, and probably not going to happen tonight, Hustler, but I know there's a lot of anticipation for this game between two teams, first in each conference. They did meet earlier this season in February, and what a game that was. 5-4 Jets win in overtime. Josh Morrissey with the winner. Ovechkin did score goal number 877 in that game, but Hellebuyck back in the net tonight. The Jets, second game back on a road trip. I think this game will be a bit more locked down maybe than that one was on February the 1st, but again, I don't know if it's sold out or not, but I know tickets are in very high demand for this one, and I imagine a great night. Similar to the Jets game against Dallas. You don't have that division implications, but the Jets are fighting for the President's Trophy. They're battling with Washington. And Dallas did win yesterday against Minnesota, closing the gap on the Central. So you don't want Dallas to catch up if you're the Jets. You just want to get all the points you can, and it'll be a nice bounce back from the loss on Sunday against Buffalo.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that loss is only costly if you don't finish the job and win the division, but not getting 2 points that I think most people expected, and certainly the Jets expected to get, and probably deserved, it's opened up an opportunity for the Dallas Stars. Now, the Jets still completely control their own destiny, but as we go into action tonight, Dallas is only 6 points back of Winnipeg. Winnipeg has a 100. Dallas has 94. As far as the chase for the West and the number 1 seed, the Jets have an 8-point lead on the Vegas Golden Knights. But it really is Dallas that they're worried about, because I think in addition to, potentially like the West, it's nice to be the number 1 team, but I mean, I think you take a matchup against either wild card spot with Minnesota in the second. If you don't win the division and you lose to Dallas, say hello to the Colorado Avalanche again in the first round. And listen, if you want to win the cup, you got to go through all the good teams. I get that. But after the last couple seasons, I think it would, we'd all agree, it'd behoove the Winnipeg Jets to be the number 1 team, have home ice throughout the Western Conference, and take on wild card 2, which as of right now is the St. Louis Blues, who have a 3-point lead on the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks have 1 game in hand, and they've got a 5-point lead on the Calgary Flames. The Flames have 3 games in hand. So Calgary's got a big game tonight at home. St. Louis is playing Montreal. Montreal's in a dogfight right now to hold on to their wild card spot. So we're into scoreboard watching season, Remis, on nights that the Jets aren't playing. As we kind of laid out this week, every week it's either Dallas or Winnipeg. So Winnipeg is going to play tonight. Depending on what happens, they'll be 6 or 8 or 7 or 8 points up on Dallas. And Dallas will once again have 2 games in hand. And then Dallas is in Edmonton on Wednesday to play the Oilers without Draisaitl, without McDavid, and then against the Calgary Flames Thursday in the second end of back-to-back games for them. So, like we talked about this, Mike, yesterday. I mean, things can change very, very quickly, with many games bunched up. And if a team like Dallas goes on a winning streak, that 10-point lead that they had a few days ago could get shrunk very quickly. But Remis, for the Jets, from their point of view, it's to put forth a great effort and do what they can do to win. And I think, if you look back at how they've played against the top teams, especially at home, they've fared very well. Now, they're going to need to do that more to beat a team like Washington that has been at the top of the league. And really the great story in the NHL this year, one of them, just with how far that this team has come under Spencer Carberry, who will be an absolute favorite for the Jack Adams. I think unless Columbus somehow comes back to make the playoffs, and I think Dean Evason would get a huge number of votes for what was expected of Columbus to where they finished. I think Spencer Carberry, outside of Evason and that possibility, the clear favorite for the coach of the year.
Washington last year, the talk was, is this the worst team ever to get into the playoffs, squeaking in with a negative goal differential? And we're going to talk to Stephen Whyno coming up, but every move that they've made, they've hit on. Dylan Strome, kind of fell out of favor. Where was he before? Chicago, and he just found a nice home number one center. Logan Thompson traded for him. We were at the draft in Vegas when he was doing like an appearance as a member of the Golden Knights, and he got traded and, still did the appearance. But now with Washington, they signed him to a contract. That move worked out very well. Pierre-Luc Dubois traded Kemper for him, and maybe it was a bit of a risk based on the way that he's played with LA, but he's really fit in as that shutdown number two center, and Carberry's found a way to get the most out of him. I like it was not this, was it last year or the year before when they traded the first for Rasmus Sandin, who's now in the top pair with Karlsson, and Jacob Chychrun, who they traded for, and just signed him to a long-term extension. So they've made a number of moves over the last couple of years that have really helped this team, continue to be a contender. And, it's crazy that Ovechkin's still on a contending team while Washington has found a way, Pittsburgh, they're not in the playoffs, and Washington with Ovechkin has found a way to remain a contender and turn over this roster. So great job by Washington and the coaching staff and management to continue to put together a winner, and the number one team in the East going up against the number one team in the West tonight. So this should be a great game.
Yeah, let's talk about Chychrun for a minute. Cha-ching Chychrun, we may have to call him. He just inked an 8-year extension with the Washington Capitals worth $9 million a season. Good bit of business by the Capitals to get a guy that will sort of take over for John Carlson as their number one, seemingly for the next 8 years. And it was funny to see him out for the skate today, Remis. I guess we should expect him to play. I'm looking on the DFO. He's listed there. There's no word that this hand cut that had him as questionable for the game may keep him out. And there's a dollar bill taped to the back of his jersey, and I believe one on his helmet today when he was out for the skate. Guys having a little fun with him after he gets a life-changing deal of $72 million.
Yeah, nice. Nicely done. Maybe he got the cut on his hand and was like, hey, maybe I should sign for this giant sum of money they're putting in front of me. And, Ottawa traded for him and wasn't going to sign there. Washington got him, for a pretty, reasonable price. And he slotted in now as their second pair defenseman. And they have him locked up. I did see Washington tweet out that they have all of their 6 defensemen locked up for next season as well. So this isn't just a one-off here for the Caps. They're in good position going forward. And, they have some young players as well, like Alexei Protas and Connor McMichael making an impact this season. Not just Ovechkin in his how old is he again, Ovechkin? What is he?
29.
Well, it feels like it. It's kind of funny. I do recall, I forget what year it was, when he was going, he had a really down season, and it was like Rick Ralph and Chris Cuthbert were on the old station talking about his Ovechkin does he not have it anymore? Is this the end of Ovechkin's goal scoring prowess? Because he was putting up like 50 goal seasons, and then he fell down to 32 in 2010-11, and he had 32 again in 12-13. Well, he rebounded with like 4 straight.
You remember what happened then? That was the Dale Hunter era.
Yes.
Like Hunter moved him to the third line and played him 15 minutes a night.
Yes.
They didn't really see eye to eye at that point. And then, as coaches came and went, they realized, okay, we got to get Ovi going. And they did exactly that. But I'll be the first one to admit, I mean, 3 years ago, the thought of Ovechkin being able to continue this level of play for this long to get the record, I thought it wasn't going to happen. I thought he'd maybe get close. But I mean, this season has been one of his best on, a goals and goals per game basis. He's only played 54 games this year. And has 34, 35 right now. I mean, it's truly been incredible, but there's so much more than the Ovechkin story. Like, I think, Washington is a team that we don't see a lot on national television. You'll see them occasionally when they come to Canada and play some of the Canadian teams. The start of the year, I mean, TNT and the other national broadcasters certainly were focusing on Washington games, with the exception of the OV chase. Well, in the midst of all of this, they have been the best team in the National Hockey League through the season, and they have so much center depth right now. You talked about, Protas. This Protas guy, if you have not seen him, he's number 21. He's 6'6", 250. He's got 29 goals on the season. I believe 34 assists. He's actually going to be playing on the right side with Dylan Strome and Ovi on that top line. He's a great story. And they've got his younger brother, too. They drafted him. These guys are Belarusian bulls. But keep an eye out for Protas tonight. And then, I mean, that second line, the return of you-know-who, PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who, to his credit, has had a great bounce-back season after a nightmare in L.A., playing with Tom Wilson, who's already over 30, and Connor McMichael, and then a pretty deep rest of the team. I mean, Eller with Mangiapane and Radish on that third line, nicked out in the middle of Brandon Duhaime and Anthony Beauvillier, who was just picked up on the fourth line. And then a really nice back end that has Sandin and John Carlson, Trevor and Ravimsdijk with the new $9 million man, Jacob Chikrin, and Fairvary with Matt Roy, who they made a big push in to sign in the offseason. And then, of course, you get to goaltending, Remis, and both Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren have been great so far this year. And, for a team that was thought like maybe they could be a playoff team, I actually thought that if anything, they'd be going the other way, and this season would just be singularly about helping Ovi get the record. Couldn't have been more wrong about that. They have been the class of the league, and certainly the class of the East all season long.
Yeah, it's been been a great season, but can they get it done in the playoffs, Huss? We'll wait and see what happens there. But great accomplishment, and we imagine Carberry will be, nominated for the Jack Adams for the job that he's done there.
As far as the Jets go, and we'll talk more about the Caps coming up in a minute with Stephen Whyno after we hear from Scott Arniel. This is going to be the first game for the next while, and we don't know how long that while is going to be without Gabriel Vilardi. And listen, I don't think Vilardi has been at his best, and I see some people have been talking about that. It seems like maybe he's been dealing with something for the last little bit. But man, it's a huge loss to the line one, and it's a massive loss to the power play with what Gabe's able to do down low. Now, the guy that will be given the opportunity and the task of filling his shoes is AI, his former Kings teammate, Alex Iafallo, who also came over in the PLD trade. Iafallo will be playing on the right side with Scheifele and Connor. And we do have some changes in the second and third lines. Well, really all the lines tonight. There's a trickle-down effect of the Vilardi loss in addition to the changes from last game. Adam Lowry with Appleton and Nikolaj Ehlers on line 2, and then Cole Perfetti with Vlad and Nino on line number 3. Rasmus Kupari comes into the lineup. Now, I'm not sure whether he'll be playing center, whether Barron will play some center, whether they'll go back and forth. But that fourth line of Barron, Kupari, and Tanev, Remis, as we had some fun with yesterday, might be the fastest line in the National Hockey League. They should be a lot of fun to watch. And the defense pairings are the same from Sunday. Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Shen. Big Stan getting his second straight start after a few in the press box with Colin Miller. And Connor Hellebuyck is back in net. And for all the talk about the backup goalie and what didn't happen on Sunday, the number one and the current favorite to win the Hart Trophy will be in net for the Winnipeg Jets tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Hellebuyck, what he brings tonight in this matchup. And, the Jets going with a more balanced approach before. Scott Arniel saying that he wants to get, each line having a guy who can be the man in front. They were talking about how last game maybe James Reimer got a clear look at a lot of the shots, and they didn't have that traffic in front. Well, you have Lowry on line 2 or Niederreiter on line 3. And, we've seen Tanev score some goals in front on line 4. So, I'm curious if they're going to stick with this. They did swap the lines after I think, was it the Edmonton? Which game was it? The Vancouver game? They switched them, and then they just went back to what it was. Against Buffalo, switched the lines because of the Velarde injury, and they do move Iafallo up and put Ehlers with Lowry and Appleton instead of sticking with, the Ehlers, Nemesnikov, Perfetti line, which had been going pretty well. I thought Perfetti, he's on a nice stretch. So we'll see how this goes. I don't think they're necessarily married to anything right away. This is what they're going to start with. And Iafallo stepping in on the power play. And the power play, it struggled the last couple of games. They did get one against Edmonton, and it was line 2 who got one against Buffalo. But, just hasn't really been that same dominant power play that was winning games for them, before the Four Nations break. So Velarde, he's big body, net front guy, good hands. He can shoot it. He's done the passes to Scheifele. It's going to be a bit of a change there with Iafallo, and we'll see how it looks tonight against Washington, who's got a very good penalty kill.
Yeah, so that's the way things look tonight. It will be different, certainly up front, not so much on the back end from the Buffalo game, but we'll see how and listen, I think Tristan Rivers' Music made a great point in chat. He says, I don't know if it'll be enough today, but this is exactly why Iafallo was such a big pickup in the trade. Can legit play on every line, played top line in LA with Kopitar for a good period of time. And we have seen him moved up during the last couple seasons for sort of spot duty. But right now that spot is open. And we'll see Alex Iafallo, who has been playing some of his best hockey this season, for my money, in the last month or so, get the opportunity to move up and keep Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor going, although Scheifele could definitely use a goal. He's goalless in his last 5. We'll hear from Scott Arniel in just a moment, and we'll also hear what Nikolaj Ehlers has to say about the upcoming game. Before we do that, though, quick shout out and thank you to our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Rolly's is family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. So if you have a move coming up in the spring or summer of 25, head on over to their website at rollies.com and click on that request an estimate feature up in the top right corner. Put in WST in the promo code, listeners, and they'll give you a special discount on moving services and supplies. And then let them know when you would like to move, where you're planning on moving, and how much you need to move. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rollies has been famous for, now into their 7th decade. For your next move, make it Rollies. Find out more online and request an estimate today over at rollies.com. It is spring and spring cleaning time in a lot of ways. How about your grill, folks? If it's been a minute since you've been into the dentist, might I suggest you pop by and see our friend Dr. Terry and the great staff at St. Vital Dental, serving generations of Winnipeggers, and now with a great new facility at 167 St. Anne's, an incredibly friendly staff, phenomenal doctors and technicians, and free parking in the back, easy in and out, about as convenient as dental visits can be. And of course, big smiles all around for at St. Vital Dental Center. Get yours ready to go for the spring and summer with a spring cleaning or taking care of all of your dental needs. StVitalDental.ca is where you'll find out more, can book an appointment. You can also pop by and see him, 167 St. Anne's Road. And don't forget, free parking right in the back. Cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. You know, while we wait for the snow to go down, we're counting down the days before getting back to cheer on the Bombers at Princess Auto Stadium. and enjoying CC and ginger ales. And, of course, some other great bean cocktails in and around the north end zone of the most fun place to be in the province every time the Blue Bombers play. But right now, when you're popping by your local Manitoba Liquor Mart, you're going to want to keep it Canadian, and you may as well go with the best, the Standard Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey since 1848. Pick Canadian Club Original 100% Rye, and Canadian Club Classic, available today at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart. Just before we hear from Scott Arniel, our pals at Manitoba Battery are ready for the change of seasons. They've been getting us through the winter with car and truck batteries at the best prices in town. And now when we start thinking about batteries for other things, maybe your sled, or maybe a Sea-Doo, maybe a boat, maybe ATV, literally batteries for anything. Manitoba Batteries got it, and they've got them at the best prices in town, allowing you to shop local, save money, and enjoy the customer service that Manitoba Batteries is famous for, because they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Keep it local, and for all your battery needs, Manitoba Batteries there for you. Find out more today at manitobabattery.com. All right, we'll talk to Stephen Whyno in a few minutes, but first, let's get down to the morning skate. Big one tonight, Scott Arniel and the Jets taking on Spencer Carberry's #1 overall Washington Capitals. Here's what Arnie had to say about the Caps.
You know, obviously, all season long, been real consistent and near the top of the league, and with running with us, and obviously the best team in the East. You know, a lot for me. Obviously, knowing the organization, a lot of young guys have really stepped up. You know, having real big years for those guys, McMichael, Protas. You know, just to see those guys sort of evolve into the players that they are, and then sort of their stalwart guys that have been around. You know, when it comes to Ovi and Wilson and you know, John Carlson, you know, they're a good deep four-line team. They got a real strong defense, and they're getting great goaltending.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good hockey team, and the standings would indicate as such. And, you know, they have not taken their foot off the gas at all. Winners of 9 of their last 10 coming into tonight. As I said, we'll find out more on the incredible season of the Caps with Stephen Whyno in a few minutes. But there's some, we just went through the lines. No Gabe Vilardi, and Nikolaj Ehlers playing with Adam Lowry. Really for the first time since they were together before Lowry got hurt. It looked really good at the start. We didn't see a lot of it. Here's what Arniel wants to see from Ehlers now playing with Adam Lowry on his line.
There's a little bit of just kind of, you know, putting, like I mentioned yesterday, putting a little bit of on each line somebody that's going to get to the net, because this is one of those games where we got to get inside and we got to get people there. You know, Washington does a good job of keeping you away from that net front. So, you know, with Fly, and just kind of going back to something we saw there, you know, earlier in the year when I had them together, I just think that Fly plays a straight, fast game, and with Lau and, you know, with Apple, those guys kind of, they do the sort of the grunt work, and if we get that puck to him, kind of like the other night coming down the wing or in the offensive zone, he had a great look in the third there as well, coming down the slot where I think it was Lau found him. So just kind of looking for some sort of balance throughout the lines.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to seeing how this looks. I mean, the early returns on Ehlers with Lowry, albeit something that I wasn't sure and really didn't think much of a fit beforehand, actually looked really good. And Ehlers seemed to really be up for that challenge now. So, listen, it probably means a little bit more ice time playing with Adam Lowry. And, you know, obviously we need to be ready for the defensive side of the game as well. But Appleton will be the dog on the puck. Ehlers will be the playmaker and probably the finisher. We'll see if they can spend more time in the other team's end than in their own tonight. These teams played an absolute thriller about a month and a half ago in D.C. Went to OT. The Jets were able to win that game, but it was far from a defensive masterpiece. These were two teams that were running and gunning, and Arniel was asked if we can expect a more defensive game compared to the fireworks of the previous meeting this season.
That one in February, we caught them coming off I think they're coming off a Western road trip, and we were busy out east there too. And just, that game got off, we got off to a fantastic start, and certainly later they got back into it. But yeah, I would think that the one thing for Washington for me is that compared to last year, like they as an organization, as a team, individual players have really bought into defending first, and their numbers show that. I don't think there is a difference, road and home. I think that they really work to defend, and like I mentioned, it's going to be a grind for us to gain offense against them. And it's the same thing on the other side. We got to be good in our end. We got to do the job against them. They like to get bodies around that net front, and we're going to have to be just as good and just as diligent without the puck, as they're going to be.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel on the defensive game. Now, listen, special teams could absolutely play a big part in this game. It's been a huge part of the Jets' success so far this year, both on the power play as well as penalty killing. And when you look at PK success this year, you see the Washington Capitals right up near the top of the list. They're third in the league, 82.8%. And the Jets, still right in the middle, 78.8 in a pack of teams right around the middle. Now, the Jets, of course, power play has been at the top of the league all season long, still on the plus side of 30, but just above it at 30.1, with the Vegas Golden Knights for the first time, just 0.4 of a percentage point behind them. And obviously the loss of Gabriel Velarde is big. So there'll be pressure on the Jet power play to get going. But here's what Arnie had to say about what their power play will be seeing in the Caps vaunted PK unit.
Yeah, they, the big thing, they're aggressive. They're going to come and they're going to attack you, especially on the half walls and the corners. They're going to come quick. The other side of it, they do a pretty good job getting in the shot lanes. Down low, they got some big bodies that kind of keep you away from that net front. So I think this, our mentality on our power play has always been that we want to have an attack mindset. So if that means it's winning races to those rebounds, or whether that's screens or tips, those are things that we're going to have to do. And if we can catch them out on that aggressiveness and maybe make one pass, one quick play, and hopefully that gives us a strike situation.
All right, a little bit more from Arnie. One more from the coach. As much as I think people are maybe on a little edge after Sunday afternoon's loss to Buffalo, let's not lose sight that this is a number one in the East versus a number one in the West game, the top two teams in the National Hockey League. And Arnie was asked about, is there some excitement around the team knowing that, these are the top two teams that have been battling for league supremacy all year long, and it could have some President's Trophy implications.
Everybody's excited. The first time we played them down in their building, we're sitting 2 points behind them, and we've kind of been back and forth all year long, and just another big challenge. And I think guys get excited about this, especially this time of year, to have one of these kind of, especially got a team in the East. So I'm expecting and hoping that's again, it's another real exciting game.
The 2 points. Is there some talk of finishing first overall, that goal?
We don't really talk about it. It's kind of, let's just go beat Washington tonight. Yeah, and that'll kind of open itself up.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. And again, there was nothing on Gabe Velarde today, no further information. I think it's safe to assume with the report that was on TSN that was taken down that it was premature or inaccurate, whatever you want to call it. So for everyone worried that Gabriel Velarde had been ruled out for the season and likely the playoffs, that was premature. He is still week to week. We don't expect him this week. And listen, I think you can sort of read the disappointment of what Arnie had to say yesterday, that this isn't something that, is short term. And I think there's a little bit more uncertainty of Velarde's situation week to week than Neil Pionk's. But just get your Gabe Velarde prayer circles ready, Jet fans, and hopefully we'll be able to get him back in the lineup for some whiteouts here at Canada Life Center when the playoffs begin. But, with the shakeup, Nikolaj Ehlers is back playing with Adam Lowry, and this time with Mason Appleton. Here's what Ehlers had to say about the new line and his new line mates.
They're two guys that are easy to play with. So I think the way that we were able to finish last game, get some pretty big chances there and keep the puck out of our own zone, it's definitely a good start. So we're excited. We're ready to keep building on this line, and that's exciting.
Speaking of the last game, have you reminded them I'm open for the big clapper?
It's once in a while, you got to try something, and it's not the first one that has gone in like that, so it wasn't enough, but it's always, the guys like it around here.
All right, so Ehlers, now it really did look good early on, and he said those guys were really easy to play for him, but he was asked a little bit more about why a guy like Adam Lowry is a good match for him. Here's what Ehlers had to say on that.
Plays easy, simple hockey. He's able to create so much room for guys like me to do what I can do, and he's just a presence. I think that the games that we've played together, we've found each other really well a lot. We've stayed in it. And we talk well together on the bench as well about what things we need to do better and what does he see, what do I see. So we just gel really well. And like I said, I've played with Appy as well, and he's the same. He's got some speed on the right side and is a guy that is able to create loose pucks in the O-zone. So, like I said, I'm excited for tonight.
All right, now this next one is pretty funny. I'll let Remis go through. If you saw his tweet thread earlier this year, we have often joked that the Jets are a team that seems to, and again, this is probably, we think this because we're following all the Jet games and maybe not seeing everything else, but an extraordinary number of milestones have come against this team over the course of the 2.0 era. Alex Ovechkin's a central figure in that, but Ehlers was just asked about the incredible career, the chase of Ovi, and memories of playing against him.
I'm glad he's 7 goals away. Let's put it that way. I feel like every time we've played against Washington, there's been some type of milestone that he's hit. He's obviously been a player that in this league has done unbelievable things and is about to do, another incredible thing, which I believe he's probably going to hit this year. I don't have a specific story, but the ability to score goals is something that he's mastered pretty well.
What do you appreciate about that ability to score goals in the ways that he has for as long as he has?
So for me, what I look at, I don't have nearly the same shot as he does, but he also shoots from everywhere. And that's how you score goals in this league. You're not going to get the perfect opportunity every single time, but as long as you get the puck towards the net, there's a chance it's going in. And the way he does that is pretty impressive. So that's something that I've looked at doing. Sometimes I maybe take some weird shots, but that's how I kind of get going. And as long as you get the puck towards the net, there's a chance of it going in. And I think that's something that he's doing pretty well.
All right, so there's Ehlers on Ovi, Reem, and if you want to take people through
Sure.
through this thread, he was not mistaken when he said it does seem like something big is happening all the time when the Jets are playing Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, I had a laugh when he said, I feel like every time we've played Washington, there's some type of milestone. And he scored his 600th career goal against the Jets. He actually scored 2 in that game, the second one being the 600th. So the Jets witnessed that. The 700th career goal was not scored against the Jets. However, before a Jets game against Washington, they held an extended ceremony to celebrate that 700th career goal. And most recently in 2022, Ovechkin scored 2 goals in this game. 800 first career goal to tie Gordie Howe, then 800 and second goal into the empty net to pass Gordie Howe into second all-time NHL goal scoring leader. So Nikolaj Ehlers, pretty good memory, because the Jets, it's not like the Southeast where they'd play multiple times per year. They're playing twice. No. They're playing twice a year. So yeah, it seems like every year, the last couple of years, they are celebrating something that Ovechkin has done, incredible accomplishments in his lengthy career.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 600 was nice, the 700 ceremony, but I mean, 801 and 802 to pass Gordie Howe to become the NHL's second all-time goal scoring leader, December of 22. Probably the biggest one. Full agreement with Ehlers. Thank God he's not close, because
he would get there. If he needed 3, he would get there for sure, just based on him needing to get 2 to get out the other ones.
Listen, Hellebuyck's back tonight. He'll be looking to bounce back from last week, help the team get back into the win column. I'll ride on Helly. I'm hoping for a under 0.5 goals for Ovechkin tonight. Maybe we'll touch on that later on the Coolbet lines today. One more from Ehlers, though, and this is about the power play. He, of course, has been a huge part of the Jets' number 1 ranked power play. So is Gabe Vilardi. Vilardi is out. Ehlers was just asked about keeping the power play going and productive with Alex Iafallo coming in the place of Gabe.
Gabe's a righty, Al's a lefty, so it changes things a little bit. It doesn't change our mindset that we want to attack, we want to retrieve pucks, we want to get people to the net. So we've talked about other things that we can do and are gonna do. So I think in the end it's just a matter of getting the puck to the net, and that's something that we got to get better at. We haven't been great at that lately. So, yeah.
Does number 27 add the drop step rather to the big clapper?
I have no idea what that meant.
Gabe Vilardi with the drop step move that he's got in tight to the net, where he gets himself some open ice in tight to the crease.
Oh, we just got cut off. I would have. Well, we'll see. Maybe if Ehlers does the drop step, maybe Kelly Moore will get credit for it, for letting him know. That might be something to get to. I don't think we'll see too much of Ehlers down in that position today, but he's going to have the puck when they do have the power play, and hopefully they can manage to solve the Caps' third-ranked PK unit in the National Hockey League. We might get a little bit of Mark Scheifele a little later on, but we do have Stephen Whyno coming up in just a moment, and Jeff Hamilton later on the show. Let me give a shout out to our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg, founded in Winnipeg, and headquartered in Winnipeg, and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 locations to serve Manitobans. 2 in the city, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and of course 1 out in Brandon as well. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in-store today or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you at Princess Auto Stadium for Bomber season this year. And of course, the 2025 Grey Cup. We've got to thank Wallace & Wallace for their great support of WST. Speaking of great Winnipeg companies, they've been doing it since 1946, the fencing and overhead door specialists. If you need a new fence or if winter's done a number on your old one, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences, and if you have a need for a garage door, they've got the largest selection in town, one perfect to match your home and add value to it as well. Give the experts at Wallace & Wallace a call at 452-2700. They'll be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also hit them up online at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop by and see them in person at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenaston. And hey, spring is kind of in the air. I'd prefer it to be more in the air, but guess what? April is just around the corner, and that means graduations. That means weddings, and that means many of you will be looking to up your menswear game heading into summer. So get down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown with custom suits starting at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories around. If you have a grad in the family, make sure to talk to them about a special deal for 2025 graduates, a free shirt and tie with the purchase of a suit. And of course, for weddings, they've got great deals and discounts for wedding parties when you get your suits at F Apparel. You can find out more in-store or find out more online at that's EPHapparel.com. And you can make an appointment to come in for a fitting there as well. And just before we bring in Stephen Whyno, shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, counting down the days to get back out to Aikens this year. And with the uncertainty we're dealing with right now, many of you might be thinking about maybe changing up your summer holiday or vacation. Why not take in one of the jewels of the province in Aikens Lake? An incredible fly-in fishing lodge where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg with world-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality as only the Aikens team can provide. Find out more today online at aikenslake.com and check out all their socials online at Aikens Lake. All right, Hammer, still to come. Right now, though, let's get ready for this 1-2 battle and find out how the Caps have done it all season long. Stephen Whyno joins us now from D.C. But I might say, Stephen, even with a cup-winning season a few years back, nothing like what we've seen this year. Front to back, number one team in the league. Now, they had done that before. The expectations weren't there. I mean, this must have been a really fun year up until this point, covering this Washington team.
Yeah, Hustler, and literally everything Brian McClellan did last offseason has worked out well. He went out and traded for Pierre-Luc Dubois, which everybody thought was stupid at the time and turned out to be brilliant. He went out and traded for Logan Thompson, he's been 31, 4-5, I think, in his 40-ish starts this season. Went out and traded for Jacob Chikrin, traded for Andrew Mangiapane, signs even on the margins, Matt Roy, Brandon Duhaime, Taylor Radish, and every move the Capitals made last offseason has worked out swimmingly to where this is the best team in the NHL, and we got the Alex Ovechkin chase going. Dylan Strome, leading scorer, another kind of reclamation project from a few years ago. That it's fun times, and a lot of people around this area are bracing for a long spring of Washington Capitals playoff hockey.
You know, there's so many other angles of what this team has done this year that I want to get to, but remiss if we didn't start off with Ovechkin. You've covered this guy for a long time. How the hell is he still doing it the way he's doing it at this age? I mean, he's more than a point-a-game player. He's got 35 and 54 this year. If he didn't break his leg and miss 6 weeks, I think it's the safe case that he'd already have the record or maybe be looking to break it tonight.
Absolutely. And he probably would have had it already and be shooting for 900 at this point of the season. So to miss 16 games with that broken leg and still be able to come back and do this at age 39, that no one else in hockey history has done this. Phil Esposito was the only one close in this age from 35 to 40, Gordie Howe, those kind of players to ever do this. And look, Alex Ovechkin's not the same sort of physical grinding 24-minute game player he was in his prime, but this is a guy who he still has that shot, he still has that power behind it, and he's got a whole team of teammates and players trying to get him the puck and get him this record.
Like, honestly, Steven, at the end of last season, when the Caps sort of moonwalked into the playoffs, if you will, I mean, someone had to make it, and they were that team. It seemed like the only thing that anyone cared about was getting Ovi shots for goals. And I think this year, many people thought that, well, the team mission was going to be get Alex Ovechkin the record. Everything else would be secondary. But you watch this team really from game number one, and it seems like that has been part of a mission that has made this team better, more competitive, and as we go into tonight's action, on top of the NHL standings.
Yeah, and it really is a motivating factor now that they've clinched a playoff spot. They're going to be the one seed in the East unless things completely go sideways in a way that would be hard to see right now. And really, like, this is what Brian McClellan and the Capitals had said for the last few years of, if we're going to try to get Alex Ovechkin this record, the team has to be good. Like, you're not, like, to get the empty netters, to get the situations, the power plays, whatever. You can't be chasing a game. You can't be in a situation where opponents are shutting down just Alex Ovechkin and his line. So the whole point was, This team needs to be a contender. And I didn't think we would ever see Stanley Cup contender level again, like get into the playoffs good enough like last year. But this is better. This team is light years better than a year ago. The fact that they were the first team to clinch this year. They're the first team in NHL history since they moved to a 16-team playoff to become go from the last team to clinch a playoff spot one season to first the next year, which just shows you the leaps and bounds that we've seen from adding Dubois, adding Chychrun, all these other things. That the Capitals, it's been fun. And down the stretch, look, they really want to get Alex Ovechkin to 895. I don't think anyone wants to see this, unless you're trying to sell tickets or some other things, drag into next season. Everyone's talking about this right now. It'd be the perfect thing to happen in the last week of the season for Ovechkin to get this record.
Tell us about Spencer Carberry. I think that it's about a minus a million odds that he'll be a finalist for the Jack Adams. I guess we'll see whether he ends up winning it. Certainly probably deserving of it. How big of a factor has he been in all of this? And what would hockey fans be interested to know about the man behind this incredible turnaround in DC?
Well, yeah, he's going to win the Jack Adams, I think, unless Dean Evison and the Blue Jackets get in. And Spencer Carberry has shown, Hustler, like the Capitals saw this in him years ago when he was on staff in Hershey and went to Toronto to be an assistant for a couple seasons under Sheldon Keefe. Kind of saw something in him. He was a finalist for the Sharks job when David Quinn got it a few years ago as well. That what's made Spencer Carberry great is when he took the job training camp last year, he said, we're going to play fast, this and that. And then within a week and a half into the season, he knew he had an old, slow team. So he adjusted. Like he changed kind of the mission and the identity of the team to win 2-1 games, 3-2 games. And then the goals dried up. So let's get pucks to the net and change everything. And Paul Maurice made a really good point the other day when I asked him about Spencer Carberry. He said he got him to play hard, and now the system's sort of ingrained. So he had the effort and the respect of players right away. And then players get the muscle memory of playing in a system for 82 games and then another 82 games. And now all of a sudden you got a well-oiled machine going. And he's a great communicator, second youngest coach in the league after David Warsofsky with the Sharks, a guy who relates to players, not having gotten to the NHL, but has played in the minors for a bunch of years. He knows how to communicate with a certain generation of players and deliver a message. And his systems also are a pretty good fit to the talent at his disposal.
So let's talk about our old pal PLD. I mean, he went to LA. He got everything that he wanted. It was an absolute disaster, and he ended up getting traded to the Washington Capitals. And you kind of mentioned people thought that they were nuts for doing this. They're taking on a big contract. There's inherently a lot of risk, but it's quite clear that Brian McClellan also saw a lot of upside. And by all accounts, it seems like that upside is finally being realized this year in DC.
Yeah, and it really is. And this is another kind of feather in Spencer Carberry's cap, is that Brian McClellan saw an opportunity to go out and trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, an elite, talented player, where you can't, unless you draft those players usually aren't available. And it really wasn't a fit in LA. And we know, for whatever reasons, why that didn't work out with Tom McCullen and Jim Hiller and all these other things, that why he wasn't fit there. But when the opportunity came up and the Kings were looking for a goaltender, you can make that trade 1-for-1. You're taking on a contract and a significant amount of risk there. But the whole goal was, let's take this guy, put him in Spencer Carberry's control. And Carberry immediately said, go be yourself. Don't worry about the contract. Don't worry about the expectations, point a game this or whatever. Just go play hockey. Be yourself. Don't worry about that. There's plenty of talent around you. And also gave him the job of, we're going to want you to be our shutdown center. And Dubois has, to his credit, embraced all of that. And it was never a concern about effort with Dubois in sort of his NHL career and all of that. Evgeny Kuznetsov was a guy who literally said to us, if I cared about 82 games a year, I could be MVP in the league. So the Capitals already had a mercurial center who didn't care. Now they had a center who maybe cared too much and sort of squeezed the stick a little tight and sort of put that burden on himself. And it took Spencer Carberry and the coaching staff to just say, relax, just go play. You're not the focus here. You're one of a big group of players. There's guys who've been around forever, like John Carlson, Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, that you're going to fit in here and just play. And everything Pierre-Luc Dubois has done since then has rewarded that trust.
It's very obvious that Carberry in particular, but Caps management has said the right things and have managed this player well, because I mean, listen, he was very effective at times for Winnipeg. He would be invisible at other times. And the real knock on him in LA after getting everything that he wanted and getting the big contract was that it seemed like more often than not that he didn't care. And that's about as damning an indictment as you can make for an NHL player. For by all accounts, they haven't seen any of that in Washington. And, if anything, maybe the way they handled him allowed him to sort of spend a couple months looking in the mirror in the summer, coming committed, ready to be what he can be. And that is a very important impact player in the National Hockey League that helps your team win games.
Yeah, and he has been exactly that. And Dylan Strome mentioned this yesterday. It's like even early in the season when Dubois wasn't scoring goals, it wasn't like he was playing poorly. It wasn't like he was sort of stuck out as a liability. But it also helped that so many other guys around the team were scoring and doing all the right things that not to cover for Pierre-Luc Dubois, but he was able to sort of settle in and take time to figure that out. And he's never been the focal point. I mean, he's only been the focal point in a good way of, holy cow, they got a guy to play with Strome and Eller and Dowd down the middle, Connor McMichael in the future, and someone who's now signed for 7 years at a rate that now seems, if he's producing like this, to be phenomenal. But I think not being in the spotlight helped Pierre-Luc Dubois as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of things that he can do well when he's at his best that don't show up on the score sheet, at least offensively. And obviously that's helping win some games as well. Speaking of offseason acquisitions that have worked out well, Jacob Chychrun's at the top of that list. And he got paid today. What did you think about the 9x8 extension? And tell us a little bit of just how well he's fit in with this club and his prospects for the future in DC.
Yeah, Jacob Chychrun the Capitals get for a third-round pick and Nick Jensen, and nothing against Nick Jensen, nice system player, sort of has fit in also really well with the Ottawa Senators. This again worked out perfectly. His 18 goals are more than the rest of the Capitals blue line combined. Only two guys in the NHL have more goals than Jacob Chychrun. And we all know sort of Chychrun is a high event player. He's as one of my colleagues like to say, he's at the scene of the crime a lot, positively and negatively, in terms of whether it's a giveaway or a mistake, but also so good with the puck and skating that he creates enough offense to more than compensate for all of those things. And I think it was a tough negotiation where Jacob Chychrun saw himself with the cap going up, maybe as a $10 million player. John Carlson in 2018, and we all know inflation and all that, was an $8 million a year player, and has wind up meeting in the middle for an 8-year, $72 million for a $9 million cap hit through 2033. That seems to be just the perfect number for the player, for the team. He turns 27 next week. You're going to get prime years of Jacob Chychrun eating up ice time, and as John Carlson sort of ages into maybe a second pairing or a third pairing role, the Capitals have his sort of replacement as a number one guy until their prospect Cole Hudson comes up through the ranks and some other defensemen they have cooking in the minors.
I guess we'll see tonight whether he's going to be able to go tonight. I'm sure with the cut hand, he was able to sign the contract. Not sure whether he'll be able to play tonight against Winnipeg.
No, and that's what Spencer Carberry said. It was still not significant damage. They got really lucky that it cut him in the wrist, but not deep enough to be a long-term absence. But certainly enough of a concern to limit him in practice. I also do wonder, just as from a human perspective, you get a skate cut like that, and you wonder, you're a UFA, you're one injury away from being Gabriel Landeskog or someone who like your career is different than it was 24 hours earlier. That maybe was the final push to get this deal done.
No, it is a great point. Stephen Whyno's with us, getting ready for the battle of the number 1 and 2 teams in the NHL, the Caps and the Jets. I have to ask you about two other players on Washington. I'll start with Dylan Strome. Just how good has he been fitting in with Ovi? And have we ever understood or found out why the hell Chicago punted on him so young in his career?
Well, and not even only that, but Arizona punted on him to trade for Nick Schmaltz after taking him 3rd overall and sort of languishing in the minors a little bit. And remember, Dylan Strome was the number 3 pick in the draft behind, Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel and ahead of Mitch Marner. So there was expectation on this guy. He was a high scoring player with the Erie Otters, the OHL, with McDavid. Even after Connor McDavid, even kind of outside of that, and the next year was a high octane player who has done a lot to sort of improve his skating and his all-around game to get to this point. And some players do need a change of scenery to succeed, or the right coaching staff to put a player in a position to succeed. And that's, I think, what the Capitals have done, first with Peter Laviolette and now Spencer Carberry and his staff, is you put him with Alex Ovechkin, or you put him with Connor McMichael. Alexei Protas has come up out of nowhere and been incredibly productive. But Dylan Strome was always sort of a highly touted, talented player who, similar to Pierre-Luc Dubois, needed an opportunity. Just kind of a little inexplicable in a way that the Blackhawks would just non-tender him rather than getting something of value for Dylan Strome, the way that the Kings did with Darcy Kemper for Dubois. But yeah, I know it's Dylan Strome has been.
I can tell you, as the Dylan Strome owner who got him very late in the fantasy league, he has been. He was completely underrated and undervalued going in, and I don't think that'll be the case going forward. But the other guy I mentioned, you mentioned his name, and I don't think this guy is even on the radar of most hockey fans that haven't been watching what the Caps have done this year. 6'6", 250, a center that has 20 goals and 34 assists on the season. This Alexei Protas is something else. Fill us in on just, how he came into the lineup, the impact that he's made, and I mean, what might this guy be capable of come playoff time?
It's incredible because he's come out of nowhere, and he's actually he's at 29 goals now. Actually, it's insane. He's about to have a 30-goal season at a $3.15 million cap hit, which is just absurd. I remember a couple of winters ago when they signed him this extension, a long-term deal, and we're all just like, "Are you kidding? Like, this seems crazy." And all the same thing, like he's just come out of nowhere. And like you can play him in the middle, you can play him on the wing. He's been a line mate with Alex Ovechkin for much of the season. Protas is just a monster. Like you mentioned, his size, but also hands. This is not just a guy. They got a power forward in Tom Wilson, who's also like that, a 30-goal scorer, tough, physical. Protas doesn't even have to be that, but he's big and he's great around the net. And this is something I was talking to his agent about a couple of years ago when he started coming into his own. He's like, I just wish Alexei believed how good he could be. And that's where the Capitals think they found a diamond in the rough. And they just drafted his brother, Ilya Protas, who might even be better down the line. So this is a potential where the Capitals went to the well of Alexei Protas, 30-goal scorer, and Ilya Protas could be playing alongside him 2 or 3 years from now.
And let me guess, the kid brother's what, 6'8", 270? I mean,
I think, 6'5" and change, something like that, still growing at this point, yes.
I heard just a hilarious segment of O'Neill and I think the Overdrive guys in Toronto talking about Protas and then finding out that the Capitals had went and maneuvered their way to pick his brother. And that could be two of the most imposing guys because, as you said, the size and the strength is one thing. He's been flirting with a point a game and will get to 30 goals right now. And I would suggest, put it this way, I'm not going to have to tell people to pay attention for this guy tonight. You're going to have a tough time missing him when the puck drops.
No, he's a big, imposing guy, and the Capitals have built a team like this where that's why I think Chris Patrick went out and got Anthony Beauvillier at the deadline is they needed the burst of speed because they've had a little bit of everything else. You got Connor McMichael, who along with Alexei Protas have maybe been the Capitals' two best players for stretches of the year, and Pierre-Luc Dubois throw in that mix. But Protas has given them, along with Tom Wilson, another hulking forward where when you talk about playoff hockey and being big and heavy and that sort of style, the Capitals shown they can score. They're the highest scoring team in the league. They're one of the best defending teams in the league, but they're also going to be able to beat the heck out of opponents in a best-of-7 playoff series.
Well, and of course, they just got one over on the Panthers on the weekend. Wouldn't that be something? Listen, they've been so consistent. They've done it all year long. They come in winning 9 of their last 10. And it is the 1 and 2 teams in the league. I mean, the game between these two teams, Whyno, was, one of the games of the year. I hope we'll have one tonight. But just before we go, just thoughts on the Jets. A lot of similarities between these teams for, kind of what people maybe expected about them at the beginning of the year and where they sit right now going into the final 10 of the regular season.
Yeah, a lot. And Scott Arniel deserves a lot of credit, I think, for the Jets' success and sort of the consistency they maintained. And he's been careful to say this is not just Connor Hellebuyck. This has been a team offensive and a team sort of defensive 5-man unit effort. Obviously, you guys have the Gabe Vilardi injury week to week to worry about what that's going to mean sort of for the playoffs. But this from Connor Hellebuyck's sort of struggles in the playoffs in recent years. And the Capitals had this where they couldn't get past the second round, that all of this is fun and everyone's enjoying it right now, but none of it's going to matter if there's not a conference final appearance, a challenging for a Stanley Cup. Like all of these things is the Jets have been trying to build their game. And I talked to guys about this when they came to town. You're building your game to peak at the right time in the playoffs. You're trying to figure out, it doesn't really matter who wins the President's Trophy in terms of that part of it. If the Capitals and Jets happen to meet in the Stanley Cup final, that's a good problem for all of us to have. But I think for each of these teams, it's not about finishing atop the league. You want to finish atop your conference and your division, certainly, and have the home ice for the first 3 rounds. But I think the Jets are in the same situation as the Capitals, where you want to try to get and stay healthy and build a sort of habits for a playoff series where when you get punched in the face by a Colorado or a Dallas or a Vegas in those sort of situations, that you got to be able to respond. Because when you have, this is the reason why there's people talk about a curse and all that. I don't believe in the curse, but when you don't have adversity throughout the year and losing streaks and those sort of things, it's almost trying to invent those and figure out how to handle them along the way. And the Capitals done a really good job, I think, so far of doing that. And we're going to see if the Jets have as well.
You know what? I love what you just said there, because the Caps are maybe the perfect example. I mean, did they win back-to-back President's Trophies, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, they won 3. They won 3. Won one in 10, 15, and 16, and then, or 16 and 7, one of those 2. And then all of a sudden everyone thinks the window is closed and they win the Stanley Cup the year after that.
They go and win the Cup. Sometimes you learn lessons the hard way, and they bear fruit later on in people's careers and in subsequent seasons. Whyno, I would love a Washington Winnipeg Cup final just so we could go have a few cold ones in both venues during it. So
bring that on, yes, absolutely.
Sign me up for that. Hey, listen, all the best. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll maybe catch up before the playoffs if you can.
Thanks, Esther. Talk to you soon.
All right, good stuff with Stephen Whyno. We're going to be bringing Jeff Hamilton in just a minute, but let's get to the why not question of the day, and this, of course, is the aftermath of the Gabriel Vilardi injury. Interested to get your thoughts, people, and let us know in the chat right now of the lines that will be rolled out tonight by the Winnipeg Jets. Iafallo with Scheifele and Connor. Ehlers with Lowry and Appleton. And now Niederreiter with Vlad and Perfetti. And heck, we'll include the fourth line because Kapari's coming back in. He's a burner along with Barron and Tanev. Why not question of the day for not AutoCorp, but Waverly and McGillivray? Which of the new look lines are you most looking forward to seeing? Or do you have the most faith? Where do you think the potential of the changes? Where you we'll focus on the positive right now. I guess if you want to put in which one are you really concerned about, you can do that as well. So let us know. Why not question of the day for not AutoCorp over at Waverly and McGillney. I see Johnny Bender. Johnny Bender has mentioned the Ilya Protas, who is the kid brother of Alexei, who we'll see tonight. Mention this. Has anyone seen Ilya Protas' stats in the OHL? He's 10 points behind Misa. 50 goals, 74 assists for 124 points in 61 games is crazy. It certainly is. And again, a monster of a man in about 6'5" or so. Let's get to the while we wait for a Hammer to jump on with us, may as well get to some fan feedback brought to you by fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No fees. So if you're jumping on, game pretty much sold out tonight. If you're looking for a pair, what you see is exactly what you'll pay. Nothing added on afterwards. And that's a heck of a lot different than most of the other ticketing resale sites. Shout out to our friends at Fans First. All right, let's see what we've got coming in the chat. Bardot, looking forward to watching the fourth line. Zoom. Silas Stahl says he's concerned for all of them. Have a little faith, guys. I mean, Belkrog, bit of a downer here. Really wish Iafallo wasn't on the top line. I love Iafallo, so I don't necessarily agree. We'll see how it goes. I love seeing Ehlers and Lowry, but that speed demon fourth line has me hilariously invested in them. I guess the question, Belkrog, is if you're not going with Iafallo, who are you going with? I mean, make no mistake about it. If the team's down a goal or something like that, you're going to see Ehlers with Scheifele and Connor. But do you want to put all of that offense on one line? And what does that do to the rest of it? Lots of chat on the Protest brothers as well. Protest brothers are going to be like the modern day Tkachuk brothers. Yeah, just 40 pounds heavier and 4 inches taller. And Yannick LaRoche, they also drafted Lane Hudson's younger brother. Yeah, Whyno mentioned that as well. And then, Ryan Leonard, Ilya Protest, Cole Hudson. That team is going to be scary. And Johnny Bender wants to be Johnny Blender. I'm looking forward to the switches and lines during the game. Well, hopefully that won't be the case because they'll be doing well. So anyways, keep your thoughts coming in on these lines tonight. My personal opinion, I am looking forward to seeing Ehlers back with Lowry. We didn't see a lot of that before Lowry got hurt pre-Four Nations break, but when we did, the early results were really good. And again, Ehlers is a line driver. Lowry and Appleton do a lot of really good things when it comes to puck possession. If you got the puck and it's on Nikolaj Ehlers' stick, good things happen. But I'm kind of with Bridget. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this fourth line looks. I think Kapari will be out looking like he got shot out of a cannon tonight, excited to get back into the lineup after he was hurt and didn't get back in afterwards. Morgan Barron's playing well, and we know what we're getting. We know what we're getting every night from Brandon Tanev, who has been a heck of a great addition to the team so far. Great stuff in fan feedback for Fans First. Fansfirst.ca. Check it out today. By fans, for fans, no fees. Miller's saying, is Stanley playing again? Yeah, the defense is the same. Morrissey, DeMello, Shen in Neil Pionk's place, along with Slamberg, and then the fourth pairing of Colin Miller and Logan Stanley, who, and again, granted, one game against Buffalo. There's a big game for the third pairing last game. Unfortunately, the rest of the team was not able to generate what that third pairing was offensively, and they finished up 1 goal short. Let's welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press to join us. Hammer, what's going on, dude? How are you?
Not bad, Huss. Wearing my Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie, which is fitting nicely. I'm 5 days post haircut, so I'm hitting prime length. So I don't really know what I can complain about, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just getting a lot of this fan feedback. I got to just point out this one. Disco 888 says, hoping this is the game that turns it around, but concerned for the annual end of season slide every year that ends with this bounce in 5 games around 1-1. Disco, they won 8 in a row going into the playoffs last year. They beat Colorado 7-0. I think if anything that last year taught us is that you'd love to get there and you'd love to be playing well at that point, but none of it really matters until you get to game number 1. And listen, right now for the Winnipeg Jets, they got to find a way to stay ahead of the Dallas Stars. I mean, that is the goal. Stay ahead of Dallas, win, focus on game number 1 against whoever you play. And you'd much rather be playing the second wildcard team than the Colorado Avalanche. So, I mean, that's really it right now, Hammer. And that's why I know that the game on Sunday was a bit of a kick in the you-know-where for Jet fans because of the way they played. And listen, when you look ahead at the schedule, there's tough teams like Washington and Jersey coming in. That was when you kind of felt you were going to get, and they didn't. But again, you look at 82 games, once in a while, some goalie's going to stand on your head. And if anything, I would expect that the Winnipeg Jets come out tonight very focused, like they've done against top teams all season long.
Yeah, I'll take you back to my middle days cross country running, Huss, if you'll bear with me for a second, and the listeners. So I used to go into the race super nervous, thinking about how other people were going to do and not myself. And one of my closest buddies, his name was Colin Rutledge, relevant, but great dude. He was part of I believe at that point, Robert Browning. I was part of Lincoln, and he was my big
rivalry.
competitor. Yeah, massive rivalry. And I would get out to the hot lead. I would get out to this feeling good lead, and Colin would be way back in the mix, and we'd be, I'm talking about cross country where I'm pretty sure it was 2 kilometers. So it wasn't like it was too long of a race here. But I get into what felt like the home stretch, and despite my cross country coach constantly telling me to focus on my own lane, to continue to look forward, don't keep going back. The energy you exert looking back. And I swear to God, every single race I ran, Colin would just get closer and closer and closer. And like I said, this was my best friend, and he would pass me with like 50 meters remaining because he just was focused on what he was doing, and I was too focused on what other people were doing and not myself. So I use that absolutely ridiculous example from many years ago to suggest that the Jets can't be worrying about what the Dallas Stars are at or that they're 6 points. They need to focus on their task at hand and do what they've been doing all season. And whether that's taking it game by game, opponent by opponent, all those kind of cliche, whatever things you hear come out of the locker room, that's what you need to focus on. The last thing you need to think about is how Dallas is 6 points away and that, there's a game, they have a game in hand, and there's another matchup between the Winnipeg Jets and Stars. And I'm not suggesting that the Jets are thinking that way. I'd go as far as to say they're not thinking that way. That any fear that exists is outside of that locker room, and the focus needs to be on just getting as many points and finishing this race. I'll steal something from Whyno, something I've been saying for on this show for weeks. President's Trophy really isn't the focus here. I mean, President's Trophy has to be something that's a nice piece of the puzzle. If you can, if you find yourself on that side at the end of the season, the focus needs to be about playing good hockey, playing defensive first hockey, which has helped the Winnipeg Jets, massively this year. Certainly working on finishing your opportunities and chances. And outside of that, I mean, I think, the Jets are still in a very good position.
This story has brought out some great stuff in the chat. There's a shout out to the Lincoln Lions from Joel Kevinson.
Appreciate that. They turned to the lasers, if you can believe that. Ooh. While I was there, they had this amazing logo. My childhood home backed onto it. And actually, when I was in grade 5, it turned into a 6 to 8 as I graduated. So I had the elementary graduation, and then was the grade 6 class in the new middle.
And they just didn't want to lose you.
I don't know if it was elementary or middle school, but they changed it to lasers, and they did like this school-wide logo competition. And I remember 2 people, not myself, modeling the new look. And I remember just thinking to myself, man.
I like the Lions. And T. Konopoli, too many lookbacks cost Hammer 2,000-meter marathons. LOL.
Yeah. Hey, biggest regret. But luckily,
I was just going to say they are certainly on that home stretch, if you will. Mm-hmm. And it is a great analogy in that they do have a lead. But to use track and field again, in some ways, the Jets are sort of have been in the outer lane, and they've looked farther ahead than they really were because of these games in hand that the Dallas Stars have had. And listen, Dallas, to their credit, has been winning them. They shut out Minnesota last night, even when they weren't particularly good or at their best. And I mean, I think we can compare that to the game against Buffalo for Winnipeg on Sunday. They've got to overtime and won. I mean, they're beating the Ducks in a shootout. They're beating Philly in OT. I mean, they're concentrating
struggling through the Edmonton, right? There's a little bit of
exactly. I mean, they did lose that game, and they're back at Edmonton tomorrow. But guess what? No McDavid, no Draisaitl. It's a pretty good time to go to Edmonton, and the Jets certainly benefited from that on Thursday as well. Although McDavid played the first, 40 minutes or whatever of the game. But we're now kind of getting around that turn, that corner, if you will, where naturally the two runners are going to be coming closer. And listen, the Jets go into tonight with 6 points on Dallas, and Dallas only has 1 game in hand. And Dallas is going to play back-to-backs against Edmonton and then a desperate Calgary team on the second end of back-to-back. So, these aren't gimmies either. But in some ways, you have to sort of assume that your opponent is going to do what they have to do. and concern yourself with your own business. And that's why, Jeff, this game tonight, as well as Friday against New Jersey, but we'll focus on this one tonight. I mean, yes, it's 1 versus 2. It's a rematch of one of the games of the year earlier on. You got Ovechkin coming in, but really for Winnipeg, they need to go in, find a way to get this thing going right away with 4 different lines that have not been together in the past. And to their credit, what they've done all year is find ways to win hockey games. And, you know, we think about the Dallas game a few weeks ago, the Florida game before. They have played some top teams and have played them very well. That's not something they can get away from right now, especially against the opponent here tonight.
Oh yeah, I mean, you need to be sharp at the, as your, you know, to your earlier points in the interview with Whyno. You need to be sharp at this point of the season. You need to be playing. I mean, you don't need to be perfect, right? No one's going to be perfect game in and game out, but you need to be liking your game. I think there's elements of the Jets games, even through their losses, that they're enjoying, that they like, that they're generating opportunities and just not, you know, capitalizing on all of them or most of them like they had been, you know, earlier in the year or even just a week earlier. You know, and those things that makes sense, but you know, it's you know, we talk a lot about the different sides of the game, Huss, and this to me is more of the psychological side. And I think that's the part that's in some ways has hurt the Winnipeg Jets in previous years, getting over some of those mental hurdles. I think you can argue that the mental game is a big reason why they haven't been able to advance past the first round, you know, in years. So it's like, you know, I think that's a big part, but the mental side is also, it's kind of, I mean, obviously it's a luxury to be in first place, but you have a target on your back. How many times have you heard guys talk about, you know, after each loss, particularly, that they're getting the other team's best, right? Teams are finding that motivation up against the mighty Winnipeg Jets. Well, now the Winnipeg Jets get to do that to the one team that they're behind, and that's the Washington Capitals. They get to use this as an opportunity where they're not the ones necessarily with the target on their back. It's the other team who's you know, in that fight for the President's Trophy is leading right now. But the Jets still remain atop that Central Division. And, you know, again, my analogy of the cross country thing, you can't be focused on looking who's behind you. You just need to be focused on what you're doing. And I think Scott Arniel, if you know, as you go through some of those clips from today and from previous days, I think that's his biggest challenge right now, is to keep these guys focused. And I think he's been doing that throughout the season, right? I mean, we've seen, I think that this fan base has certainly looked at parts of the season and wondering when the wheels are going to fall off, and they just haven't. They've kept on rolling, and that's a testament to Scott Arniel, of course, and his staff, but particularly the players. I think the interesting part here for me, Huss, is how the Jets are going to do without Gabriel Vilardi. You know, we've already seen, you know, the Jets have been relatively lucky when it comes to injuries this season. However, you know, you look at a couple different bigger ones, like, you know, and this has been more of an issue earlier in the Jets' time. It felt like one guy missing from the lineup, you know, at times proved to be catastrophic. Like I said, they've seen it a little bit this year. Obviously, they had no problem rolling with a guy like Adam Lowry out of the lineup. I mean, I think a lot of people looked at, you know, obviously what Lowry brings to the table, being the captain, being that energy leader, bringing that ability to bring, you know, swift momentum shifts in their favor, in the style in which him and his line mates play. And they reeled off 8 straight victories without him. But then you look at a Dylan Samberg, and when he's out of the lineup, and the stats that show the Jets don't do so well. So I'm wondering what the Vilardi effect will be, if you will. I mean, we know how important he is to the power play. We know how, you know, I think there's some knocks against him recently with his 5-on-5 play with the top line, and that might be owing to a lingering injury that might be the culprit as he's out week to week here, and question mark for the playoffs. But you know, I'm curious to see how this team rises to the occasion, right? There's opportunity here. There's that open spot on the top line. See what other guys who have been chomping at the bit, wanting more responsibility, again, more opportunity, how they're gonna deal with this. Because I think, you know, they seem mentally stronger. They seem built to get through these kind of injuries a lot more so than previous years. But it is, you know, as far as timing goes, it just kind of, you know, it puts you in a situation as a team where you're thinking about injuries and you can't really afford another one. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how the Jets answer tonight, just given their recent play and the recent news of Vilardi being out.
Well, let's sort of dive into that. Listen, I you know, it's funny. I mean, players, listen, different people have different views of different players, and that is natural when it comes to fans and media and all that. I've been, a huge Iafallo guy really since he got here, and the fact that, he has played on the fourth line, he's played on the third line, and then when needed, he's moved up higher, whether it be playing on the top line, which was occasionally last year when there was a player out. Obviously, Gabe Velarde missed a significant amount of time, and now he's back there. And what is interesting about Iafallo is that he's been in this situation before with the LA Kings. He does a lot of those things that, frankly, that line needs. They need a guy that will get the puck. They need a guy that's good on winning puck battles, and need a guy, to Scott Arniel's point, that doesn't mind setting up shop in front of the net, whacking in rebounds, and being there. And I'm intrigued. And you want to talk about an opportunity for a guy.
Doesn't desire the puck all the time, right?
No, exactly. I maybe think the spot on the top line, I understand why they're starting there. Make no mistake about it. If this team needs a goal, end of the period, down in the third period, we're going to see Nikolaj Ehlers with those two guys. I think that's an absolute no-brainer, and the game will dictate that. But if they can do well with Iafallo on that spot, it opens up this second line with Lowry and Ehlers. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this looks. And again, the Appleton on the other side, I would have time. Put it this way, if Iafallo wasn't on the top line, I would have some time for maybe giving a look there. But Lowry and Ehlers looked really good together. We heard from Ehlers earlier about playing with Lowry. And the one thing that I remember about Ehlers in those games earlier was that he seemed to be emboldened or empowered by the defensive responsibility that came along with playing with Adam Lowry. And I bring up Ehlers and I bring up Iafallo because they're both pending unrestricted free agents. We all know how good Ehlers is and what he's worth. This is a huge chance for Iafallo as well at a very good time with 10 regular season games remaining before we get to the playoffs to maybe add a few numbers himself. So, that top six has a lot of intrigue to it. But again, a lot of pressure comes with that because these are the lines that will be carrying this team, the Scheifele line and the Lowry line, whoever is whatever incarnations that they're in.
This is just a feeling, so I don't know if this is if the evidence is going to back this up. But I feel like every time Iafallo's been promoted or given an opportunity, and because it hasn't lasted long enough, right? It's been a game or two or whatever. He's always kind of made a mark right away, with a goal or, with just being an impact guy. And I've certainly argued in the past, the need to kind of, quote unquote, spread the wealth amongst the lines, right? To have those three guys on the top line, that was a bit more foreign, a few years ago. You're seeing it a lot more now with lineups stacking their top line. Usually, it's for special teams reasons and just the ability to have that continuity to put that line out and not have to worry about one guy, maybe whatever, being on the ice. So it's probably easier for coaches, but I've always kind of, appreciated that spreading the wealth amongst lines. You often saw it with Sidney Crosby, right? He was turning, relatively unknown wingers into, 30 goal scorers and making things happen, right? Doing what great centermen do, making the players around you better. And just the way that Mark Scheifele's been playing hockey this year, I think that he could be that guy to bring on, Iafallo and to have him comfortable. And to your point, Huss, I think he brings all those things that I don't want to say that Connor and Scheifele don't like doing necessarily, but aren't really expected to do in certain ways in the style in which they play. And if Iafallo can complement that line, keep up to that speed, get on the same page of those two players and see some damage here, I guess you could look at that as potentially a good thing here for when Velarde comes back, just to have that extra guy. You're going to need that depth. You're going to need those players jumping up the lineup, as guys inevitably, especially if you go on a long, inevitably, get banged up. I'm interested in the look with Lowry there. I'm not surprised by Ehlers' comments. I think Ehlers is a unique player to play with. I think he's a guy, as I mentioned, Iafallo doesn't desire the puck all the time. I do think that Ehlers is better when he's possessing the puck. We all know about his own entries and his speed and what he brings to the table. I think and we also know that Ehlers likes to muck it up a little bit, right? Like, we know that he's not going to, you don't want to see a guy like that dropping the gloves, but you see him, teasing it probably more often than the coach's heart rate would like. You just know he likes that. And when you have a guy like Adam Lowry on your line, you skate a few inches taller. And I think that's a nice thing to have. No offense to Vlad Nemestikov. He's been doing everything and more the Jets have been asking of him, but I do think that brings an added element to that line. I also think, with going back to Iafallo and I bring up a guy like Nemestikov, I think Iafallo has that scoring ability. I think he has that potential. Whereas Nemestikov, for me, I know they're not in the same line or in the same position, but we've talked about this before. The difference between him or the knock against him being in the top six is just that lack of finish. There's too many times in a game where the puck, credit to him for being in the right position and space and all those things to get those opportunities, but you need to bear down and finish them a lot more. And while Lowry is not known as the goal scorer necessarily, he can score in multiple different ways, and just his physical presence alone will create space and time for a guy like Nikolaj Ehlers. So I do like the look there. We'll see if it pans out. I think this is kind of the stage where, a lot of people are nervous about the Dallas Stars. And I know that obviously it's not just the President's Trophy. It's mostly the position in the standings. But I just think this is a bit of time to experiment, and in this case, forced experiment with an injury out. But you do want some answers to questions that you might not have had heading into the playoffs, and it can bring a renewed energy too, Huss. Like when when you're battling, like whether it's winning this game for Vilardi or playing with new line mates, it adds it's a long 82 game season, and I'm not saying this is like fun days for them necessarily, but I do think it adds a wrinkle. It puts them a little bit more on notice to have their P's and Q's, for lack of a better term, on point, and making sure that they are where they need to be, playing with different players. So I think that it almost kind of it does probably mean a little bit more thinking. It almost kind of takes some of the other thinking out of the game. But when you're more focused on what you need to do, you're less worried about some of the other stuff that might not be as important as, again, in that mental side of the game. So, it'll be interesting to see some of these lineup changes. It'll be interesting to see who can take advantage of those opportunities, because that's the beauty of having a team that's up there in the standings top spot, who's gone through relatively low level of injuries, is that you're having a lot of fun along the ride, but those opportunities are few and far between. And now that they've opened up, while it's not an ideal time for the team and organization as a whole, it isn't a bad time as to dig deeper and find some of those answers to the questions around different players and different combinations that you might not have had if this didn't occur. Silver lining, Huss.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think you're right in the timing. I mean, the one thing is, and listen, you'd never want to see guys get hurt. But kind of to your point, I mean, this team has been pretty fortunate. I mean, you lost Sandberg for a while, you lost Adam Lowry for a while, but other than that, touch wood, this team's been pretty healthy, and now they're dealing with Pionk, who I would imagine, I think from everything that we've heard, we expect him to be back potentially before the end of the season, but for the playoffs. And then there's a big question mark with Gabriel Vilardi. There's been some different things out there. I mean, the team's saying he certainly has not been ruled out. He's week to week right now. And, Scott Arniel talked about not being able to play the full 82 games. He didn't.
Feels like a Mike O'Shea kind of situation, doesn't it, to you, with the Vilardi?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't say he'll be back for the playoffs, so it's not like it's a three. It's not like it's a certain amount injury where you're just going to save him for the last, little bit there. Because you want to get back on the ice before the playoffs, right? Like, oh, for sure. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about deleting things and whatever, but you as a head coach, I mean, even if he is out and doesn't play in the playoffs, you ain't coming out and talking on the podium about how he's going to, whoa, we're not ruling him out. No one's going to rule anybody out.
Well, if he was out for the season and had to go have surgery or something, I think they just listen.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But obviously it's close. It's not a comeback over the weekend or sit out the next road trip and come back. It's a serious injury and to the point where Scott's talking about how bad he feels for the player, man. Like, read between the lines. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't, if it was a 4 or 5 game thing, 6 game thing, he wouldn't be talking about the guy's off-season efforts and wanting to play a full 82 and stuff. Maybe that's a coach taking the focus off certain things, but I don't know. To me, I was, it doesn't seem good.
Well, if you don't hear, Remis is going to grab the clip from yesterday. We're going to listen to this again. I will mention, I think with Vilardi, it makes sense to him speak to that way more than anything, because he'd never been able to play a full season.
And that's the reason why his point totals aren't where they're at, right? Like, well, and he was on the final stretch of a great year and was, I understand why he said it, but if he was kind of coming back around the corner, Yeah, well, listen, let's play this again. This is from yesterday, when it was known and made public that Gabriel Vilardi was going to be out week to week. I think Reams got this. We're going to do the Seinfeld thing where we just freeze our faces.
Oh, it's really disappointing. It's actually what we talked about. We're so upset about last night when we found out, he's done such a fantastic job of his summer training to do some specific things so that he can, hope to have an 82 game schedule, 82 game season. His training in season training, kind of looking after himself, doing all the right things to get him here. And it really is the kind of what happened. You guys can go find it yourself, but it was kind of a little bit of a freak situation, and it is what it is. But really disappointing that he couldn't, because I really felt that this was a year that he might be able to get 82 in.
Will you be able to project his playoff readiness at this point, Scott?
We'll just go on week to week here for now. We'll just wait and see.
So we'll just go for week to week now. We'll wait and see. I mean, listen, I will certainly give them this. There is a concern that when the playoffs start, they are preparing for the possibility that Gabe Vilardi won't be in the lineup. You hope that isn't the case. And I mean, it's the 25th of March right now. The playoffs are going to start probably on the 19th, 20th of April. So you're looking at just under a month. And again, always hear some of these injuries. Oh, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Well, if something's 4 to 6 weeks, that 4 weeks is basically coming right when the playoffs start. So, I mean, I understand the concern, and listen, whether you're reading body language or reading between the lines, I mean, it certainly wasn't, we expect them back for sure. But again, and this is the first game moving forward that I think they have to play as if he's not part of the mix, as unfair and bad as that sounds, and see what they can do without him, Jeff. But that is a huge question mark. I don't think there's any doubt going into this drive to the end of the season and then into game one.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to paint, I'm reading between the lines suggesting doom and gloom. You're right. I mean, this is a guy who's battled injuries year to year. He's young in his career. From all accounts, considering nobody seems to know exactly when and where it happened, it seems like a freak accident to a certain degree, or like one of those, you fall to the ice and something tweaks or turns, or you whatever, right? Like, there's lots of hits that look innocent, or you wouldn't take a second look at, and next thing you know, the guy's collarbone's shattered. You know what I mean? Like, it's just there's lots there. It's just hate to hear week to week with 12 games left in the season. That's it. But I mean, again, these things can be rallying cries. You'd much rather have Gabe Vilardi in your lineup by your side, and particularly on your power play. But if you can't have him, you can't, at least for now, you can't wallow in your despair. So got to move on. And again, we've been talking about this for much of the interview. There's an opportunity here. There's a real opportunity here. And anybody who's wanted it, it's there to take. And this team too, it's played well on its defense, as I mentioned before. Like, this is a team that has played well on special teams. They just need to find that groove, that rhythm, and not make the moment bigger than it is. And dare I suggest, have a little bit of fun here? You know what I mean? Like, it can't all be, it's a hard style of hockey to play, the Winnipeg Jets style, right? And so that's been my opinion on the first round exits, is this team goes balls to the wall for 82, and then there's not much left in the tank. So, standings are important. certainly in the Central Division and dictating who you're going to play. But, you know, as I said last week and the week before, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, it matters, I guess, but you're going to have a tough opponent because right now, Huss, you look at those wild card spots, I don't see those teams playing bad hockey right now. So particularly if it's the St. Louis Blues that they end up playing in the first round. So, you know, that sounds a lot better than Dallas and or Colorado.
Yeah, that's the thing.
However, it's not, you know, like anything can happen. So I just, you know, maybe this is, you know, maybe we don't decide fate. Maybe we control fate here, Huss. But either way, it's going to be a fun ride. And I think it's going to be a very, very interesting / exciting finish to this hockey season.
No, there's no doubt about that. I know someone was asking about Dallas and what if, you know, what about playing Dallas in the first round? That's pretty much not happening. Colorado would have to overtake both Winnipeg and Dallas to win the Central.
Yeah.
And I think at last look, that was far less than 1%. I mean, you're basically talking about them winning all 11 of their final games. Or they're 10 or 11, and then hoping that both the Jets and Dallas Stars go ice cold. So, I mean, basically the scenario is this: hold on to the West and the Central, win the division, and get, well, right now it's the St. Louis Blues who are in there, or who are in that wild card. If Dallas were to win, you know who's waiting there: the boogeyman from last year, the Colorado Avalanche, who are a completely different team, but they still have some of the major suspects that roughed them up, particularly Nichushkin, who, due to his own off-ice antics, was lost to the team for the rest of the playoffs after 2 games of the second round. And that was a huge, huge blow to the Avs.
And he's so good.
Can you believe that guy went through an entire season without scoring a goal? Still, it is the most bizarre when you see how good he is and how big he is and what he does in front of the net and the world-class skill that he has. He went through, I'm going to have to see how many games this was, but he literally, let's fire this up. Valeri Nichushkin with the Dallas Stars, 57 games, 0 goals, like James Wright.
James Wright.
Like, I mean, that you play 57 games, you're gonna take one off the ass at some point, hit yourself in the head or whatever. I mean, shrewd business on Colorado.
I will remind you, Huss. Like, I wonder. That's kind of when not when he started making the NHL. Obviously, I wonder what his deal was at that time. You know what I mean?
Listen,
like, he's obviously had a lot of demons here, you know, throughout his season. But yeah, to your point, I mean, 0 goals in 57 games.
If you're that down bad, how are you in the lineup? I guess is the point. I mean, if you're that, and like, good business on Colorado to see the potential that this guy had and pick him up. And I mean, since then, you know, his first year, he was 13, 14 for 27. The next year in 55 games, he was 10 and 11 for 21. So, I mean, kind of pretty regular average third line numbers. And then
I didn't even know that he went 0 goals that year. That's news to me.
57 games. I mean, I remember we were kind of just joking around about it. Now, he had gone back. He'd played for 2 years in the KHL and then came back. But it didn't work. Anyways, the guy's an absolute beast right now. And he's been back for 33 games. He's scored 18 goals and has 29 points in those 33 games. And listen, for all the talk about Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle and the goaltending and all that, you know, he might be the most dangerous player not named McKinnon. That includes Marty Nakash on the team, which has been a pretty nice add in the absence of of Mikko Rantanen. So listen, while we glaze the Avalanche and what they are right now, let's get back to the Jets and just focusing on finishing the job and doing this. And it's a wild week this week because, as we mentioned, Dallas played last night. They won. Winnipeg plays tonight. Dallas and Edmonton tomorrow, Dallas and Calgary on Thursday. So, Jeff, by the time that we wake up on Friday morning, the standings will have even games played. Both teams will have played their 72nd game. There'll be 9 games left in the season, and we'll see what is left of this sprint, beginning with that game against the Devils and, of course, a very hungry Vancouver team that came back to beat the Devils last night, last-minute goal win in a shootout.
I think they were still reeling from that loss against the Rangers on the
where
weekend.
They outshot them 40-12,
39-12. Yeah,
it was so crazy. Just on the wild card right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting St. Louis to finish the job, or do you think that Vancouver or Calgary? I think that Utah, after that loss last night at home, still 6 back.
I'm not buying Utah right now.
Going to be very, very tough to make it. Vancouver has a game in hand and are 3 back. Calgary is 5 back with 3 games in hand. So you have to win those games. And credit to Calgary, those 3 games they found a way to win on that big Eastern road trip. They're back in. But it does sort of seem the way St. Louis is playing 8-1-1 in their last 10. If we're looking at recent form, they're heating up at the right time. And
they're getting contributions, man, up and down the lineup. Like they're getting St. Louis is getting goaltending. They're getting, like Dylan Holloway's been an absolute monster. Braden Shen, obviously Kyrou, like Thomas, like Buchnevich, like those guys are good players, man.
Yeah,
and the defense is solid. Like, it's just, it kind of feels like, again, it feels like one of those, like, you got to manufacture what you need at this time. St. Louis is too busy to be looking behind them. They need to be, and much like the Jets, they're in 2 very different spots, but they can't be focusing on who's behind them. They need to be focused. If I were them, I'd be looking at who's ahead of me. I'd be looking at Minnesota as like my goal here. Right. I think
that's not out of the question.
It's not. They feel like they got to, like, they don't have a ton of breathing room against St. Louis, but they do for the wild card spot. But I mean, Minnesota was hanging out in that 3rd spot in the Central for seemingly forever, and everybody was just talking about how Colorado was going to eventually catch up to them and clips them. But I think there's lots there. I mean, I'm with you in the sense that, like Anaheim made it very interesting for a while until they didn't. Utah's kind of falling into that group. Now, particularly with that loss yesterday, but like I don't know, like that's a log jam. I mean, Calgary to me is I don't want to say built for the playoffs because they clearly need more talent, but they're that rugged team and they're getting goaltending, right? You could say the same thing for St. Louis, Vancouver. They would be a massively disappointing year for them if they don't punch it. But the reality is that 2 of those 4 teams aren't going to make it. So that's an exciting race in and of itself. And you look at the 2 teams below the playoff line right now, and both of them are Canadian. I know as a Canadian, I'd love to see more Canadian teams in the mix. But for that to happen, St. Louis is going to have to fall off a cliff. Not fall off a cliff. Minnesota will have to fall off a cliff, and St. Louis will have to, hit a rut, if you will. But we'll see what happens here. I think that'll be an exciting finish in these last, dozen games.
Well, and I guess the big question with Minnesota, I mean, do they get Kaprizov? Do they get Eriksson Ek back? I mean, it's incredible what they've done. I mean, they were already $14 million clipped off the cap, and then their top 2 offensive players have been out. Kaprizov for half the season, and obviously Jeek now for the last month or so. Hammer, great stuff as always, dude. Enjoy this game tonight, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, stay cool, my friend.
By the way, one bit of news. I did get a text from my buddy Darren during this segment who did say that his son went to Lincoln 2 years ago and they have changed back to the Lincoln Lions.
Let's go. Let's go. Really? Yeah, nice.
And
okay.
he sent me, I'll text you this afterwards, but you may need to go and get one of these shirts. A very new fierce lion logo, and it says the Lincoln Lions, join the pride. So
nice.
There you go.
I love one of the world's biggest wrongs was righted. Thank you so much. Don't tell me this break. There isn't. You guys got fact checkers back there.
It is.
Whoa,
Remis
look at that.
Right
That looks like a panther with a lion's mane. Is that not? That looks like the Panthers logo with a lion mane. But hey, you know what? Good old Lincoln Middle School. They're getting it done. Love it. Shout out to them. They're doing great things over there, producing great kids. So
Jeff Hamilton, from the Winnipeg Free Press, and one of the few people in Winnipeg history to attend Lincoln Elementary and Lincoln Middle School.
Yeah,
a pioneer, if you will, in St. James Middle School experience. Maybe keep working on those 2K marathons. Thank you as always, and I will talk to you
I've been
soon.
looking over my shoulder ever since, Huss. It hasn't changed, man. It hasn't changed. It's every day for me now. So I'm just, Yeah. Someone's always creeping up to me eventually. So we'll, I'll keep it. It's worked for me so far. I'll keep it. And Colin, he can have those golds. We're still buddies. So all good. Nice little full round out, full circle interview here. You know how to
only
do
on
that.
WST. We've
Absolutely.
got a chance to have a little fun and go down some Winnipeg history at the same time. Enjoy the game tonight, dude. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, friend. Take care.
All right. We actually got a little Mark Scheifele and Spencer Carberry, so we'll pop that in. A big-time victory lap coming up on our Coolbet segment for those of you that were with us yesterday. I hope you rode with me. But listen, I got to shout out Royal Sports. And again, this is a big week and weekend coming up for the Jets. If you're already planning on what you're going to wear for the playoffs, you might want to get down to Royal Sports and get your hands on all of the Winnipeg Jet merchandise, and particularly the white ones, will go great for a playoff run here in the Peg. Royal Sports is the place with the largest selection of literally everything Jets that you can find, including all the jerseys, which you can customize with the name and number of your favorite player in store. Got great new Bomber merch coming in as well ahead of the upcoming season. And of course, with Major League Baseball opening day on Thursday, new Jays and MLB stuff in as well. And of course, when you're down at Royal, you got to check out all the cool things on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side of the building as well. Royal Sports is at 750 Pembina Highway. You can also follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Hey, if you're not lucky enough to have a ticket for the game tonight, with the top two teams in the NHL, next best place to be is your local Boston Pizza. Man, we had a great time last Thursday with the WST crew out of BP Garden City. One thing that you can take to the bank is that every Boston Pizza in Manitoba is going to have the game on all the screens with the sound cranked and pick a player contest where if your player scores, you'll be able to spin the BP prize wheel and win great food and prizes from Boston Pizza. Tonight and every night, make it BP. And if you are staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. And yes, follow BP Winnipeg and Little Brown Jug on Instagram, and you can see the great chokehold I put Spency in, who was wearing an Oiler jersey at the watch party last week, and all the good times we had last week at BP. And of course, that was with Little Brown Jug. And speaking of Little Brown Jug, might be a couple generics being had tonight, even if it is Tuesday. Big game feel. A big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug, Manitoba's favorite local brewery.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right. Yes, we do have a birthday to shout out in just a moment, potentially with a video accompaniment too of something that you guys will like for a great friend of the program. But listen, just before we get to the lines at a big night in the NHL, let's hear from Mark Scheifele. Scheifele spoke after the morning skate today and just talked about the task at hand for the line of the power play with Vilardi being out for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, obviously it sucks for Gaber. You know, he's had such a great year, and obviously just want him to get as healthy as soon as possible. So, he's a guy that's dialed in and wants to do everything he can to get back as fast as he can. And obviously, we've played with Al before. We know how great of a player he is, and how many good things he does out there for us. So obviously, it's going to be an adjustment, but excited to play with him tonight.
There's Mark Scheifele, and as Nick Ehlers was asked, hey, Ovi's in town, NHL legend, 6 goals away from tying Wayne, 7 from setting the all-time lead. Scheifele was asked if any Ovechkin story stands out to him.
I think probably the coolest thing was one time Jay, our equipment guy, asked if I could sign a stick, and I was like, oh, who's it for? He said it's for Ovi, and I was like, can I get one too? So I ended up getting one back, and he was obviously very, very gracious. He said thank you during warm up, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
You can tell Scheif still has that hockey fan, that, you know what he is, bitten, and the way he's wired. That was pretty neat from Mark, and I can only imagine his reaction. Wait a second, what? Alex Ovechkin wants my stick? Very, very cool. Listen, let's talk to a guy that has to be at the top of the list for Jack Adams. Really, I think this is a battle of two Jack Adams candidates, very worthy candidates. But Spencer Carberry was asked just on what he's learned about the Jets, particularly after that first meeting back in February.
Transition game, big problem for us in our building, so that's something that we're going to have to pay attention to. They're basically, I mean, you can call it their top six, whether you want to include 4 or 5 guys in that mix of Perfetti and Ehlers with that top line. I know Velarde out, but for my money, as good as any top 6 in the National Hockey League. Like, that top line can make you pay in so many different ways, whether it's ozone movement-wise or off the rush delays, finding secondary, second wave defensemen getting up in the rush, and then you combine that with Morrissey and great goaltending. I mean, you have every box checked for an elite team, and they gave us a lot of trouble in our building. And so I think the big thing out of that game, especially against their top 6, going to have to be on our toes in transition when we have the puck and now all of a sudden we don't have the puck. What does that look like, and what does that turn into for them? Are we able to Are we able to handle that? Tonight will be a big part of the game.
All right, so there's Spencer Carberry, head coach of the Washington Capitals, and we haven't spent a lot of time talking about PLD. God knows we've done enough of that in the history of Winnipeg Sports Talk, but he is back here. He is having a major bounce-back season, and Spencer Carberry talked about Dubois and what he's meant to the Capitals this year and how he's turned it around.
We got a lot of guys that you could argue are MVPs. He's right up there. He's been instrumental in our success, being able to play against other teams' top lines, and then chipping in offensively and doing a great job. He's been an every situation player for us. He's played at a high level all year long. It's been consistent from game 1 to where we are in game 71. It hasn't really dipped. I've deployed him, given the toughest matchups I possibly can every single night, and he thrives in them and appreciates them and wants it. So he's, I don't know another way of describing it. He's been instrumental in our success this year.
There's Spencer Carberry on PLD. Going to be a good one tonight. And let's hope, Michael Remis, that our good friend, the birthday boy, Ken Wiebe, celebrating 50 around the sun, gets a banger tonight at Canada Life Center. How about that? Happy birthday to Ken Wiebe. It has been said almost daily in the chat. Every single time Ken has been on the show, people wish him happy birthday. Today is, in fact, his actual birthday, and he's turning 50. So a big happy birthday to the well-hydrated Ken Wiebe from the two of us and everybody at Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, it is in his theme song that they play on KNR. Oh, here's a nice heart in the chat from Pierre-Luc Dubois.
PLD, welcome back, PLD.
People were asking if he stopped in to say hi. He said hi before the show, took his pregame nap. I'll always be a fan of PLD. I'll never forget what he did for this channel.
He did more for Winnipeg sports, the growth of WST, than maybe you or I ever did in putting it together. He's number 1 on the power poll.
100%. Forever. Him and, yes, PLD built this channel. But Ken Wiebe, it's his birthday, number 50. Colin Jensen joking, or I don't know if he was joking. He was saying in chat that Ken was telling everyone at the morning skate that it was the big milestone day. They do, it is part of the song on his intro on KNR. And shout out to Brian Munns, who put out this video compilation of golf shots of Ken. You want to see this?
Listen, I do want to see it, and I'm going to. Okay, so here it is. Happy 50th birthday, Weaver.
Oh, cut.
That'll work.
Ben.
As you can see, and podcast listeners didn't even know, this is just a thought. There's no one. Nobody talks to their ball more in the entire sport of golf than Ken.
I was wondering, like, why is Brian just recording Ken? Is that because he talks to his ball and you want to see what he's going to say?
You know what? Those two guys are such golf nerds. I could see Munns and Weeb playing their match, recording each other's shots, and then going back to the clubhouse before they play a second round and do some swing analysis on each other's iPhones from the footage that they had. I'm happy that Munzie did that, though, because as I mentioned, like sometimes Ken can come on the program and be somewhat long-winded. You can't really do that during a golf shot because there's a finite amount of time. Ken will have a full conversation with his ball on just about every drive, many approaches, and even the putts on the way to it. But Weber, happy birthday, buddy. We'll look forward to seeing you tonight, and I hope it's a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you and the gang coming up on the weekend. Let's get to we do need to get this pod up because of the game tonight. But let's get over to Coolbet, the Coolbet lines. And may I ask any WSTers that were with us, did you ride with me on the 3-point games last night? Because as we laid out, this is 3-point season. And when you have these teams that cannot afford a regulation loss, desperately needing 2 points, but one better than 0, we locked in. Now, we had, on Saturday, we got brutalized by that Vancouver Rangers game. But we went back to it last night. Vancouver and the Devils and Columbus and New York. And you want to talk about a sweat. Vancouver scored in the last minute to tie that game up against New Jersey. And almost at the same time, Columbus had tied it up. They were in the final 30 seconds. And Kyle Palmieri scored, or I guess, was it Palmieri? Palmieri was called for goaltender interference anyways on a goal that the Islanders scored with less than 10 seconds left. And the sweat that we had having to deal with this review that, to be honest, if I didn't have any skin at the game and didn't desperately need them to call it off, I would have probably thought it should have been a good goal. That being said, great call by the Situation Room to not allow the goal. It went to overtime. We hit it at plus 1938. So as you can see, a $20 bet last night paid $407. It was a very nice day in the lock shop. And Jake and I are back at it tonight. We went down the list. There's 10 games in the NHL. Which are the most likely to maybe go to OT? Well, hey, the Jets and Caps played to OT earlier on in the season. Why not tonight? We've got a 60-minute draw, points for everybody, 3-point game tonight in this game between the Jets and Caps. And Montreal and St. Louis are both in playoff spots right now. Don't think that if those teams are tied late in the game, they both won't be more than happy to assure themselves of one and get the extra one. We have a crazy boost up to just about 20-1. It is plus 1966 right now in the combo cards. So if you'd like to see if we can bang out the 3-pointer doubleheader 2 nights in a row, it's up there. We got Jets Caps and Blues Canadians going to extra time tonight at just about 20-1. We also put together a little partner parlay for tonight's game. We've got the Sens over Buffalo, the Flames over the Kraken, and the Kings over the Rangers. And that's a nice boost from plus 362 up to plus 416. As far as the single game odds tonight, Sens minus 159, Buffalo minus plus 135. The Canes are minus 270 faves against Nashville. Tampa minus 278 against Pittsburgh. Leafs minus 263 against the Flyers. Vegas now minus 213. That number's gone up significantly. Of course, the Wild had to play last night and then travel back home. Minnesota plus 178 at home. St. Louis is minus 154 against the Habs. Jets are a minus 143 favorite against Washington. Caps plus 121. The Flames minus 139 over the Kraken. Avalanche a big minus 303 favorite. And the Kings minus 164. You know, there are some big favorites tonight, Remis. If we picked, I'm just going to click all these right now. If we picked the Avalanche over Detroit, Vegas over Minnesota, Toronto over Philly, Lightning over Pittsburgh, and Carolina over Nashville. They're all big favorites. Vegas, the shortest, -213. It comes to +403. Here's the question. Which team screws up that 5-gamer?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Wait, what was I wasn't paying attention. I was moderating the chat here. Which is the 5-gamer? Sorry.
Colorado over Detroit.
Okay.
Vegas over Minnesota. Toronto over Philly.
Oh, here it is.
Tampa over Pittsburgh. And Carolina over the Predators. No, I've just put this up. I've just done this myself.
Oh.
But just like, who are we going to have? Like, are we thinking Detroit upsets Colorado? No. Minnesota over Vegas. That's going to be tough playing last night.
No.
Philly at Toronto?
Maybe. They could surprise.
Pittsburgh at Tampa? Nashville at Carolina? I don't know.
I feel like Toronto's the team, Huss, that always lays the egg again in the games. Didn't they lose the Coyotes every time? Toronto, they always lose those games where they're big favorites. I'm saying Toronto.
I agree. I think the Leafs are the most likely team to blow it.
Tortorella, I mean, he coaches them pretty hard. We saw them come in here and put up a win.
Yeah,
shootout win.
No, that is true. Money line counts. Anyways, big slate of games tonight in the NHL. One other thing, and maybe I'll do this for the play of the day. Dylan Cousins +220 to score against his old team Buffalo. That's got to happen, right?
Yes, yeah. I remember I had Jack Eichel. Every time on DraftKings, I'll take him against the Sabres. So yes, I agree. The revenge narrative bet, you have to do it for sure.
Have to do it. Maybe I'll throw that out for the POD today. By the way, TGL last night was amazing. 15th hole victory for the Atlanta Drive over New York. Billy Horschel, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas. What you might not know is that it's a best of 3. They're playing again tonight at 6. And if New York wins, they'll play the deciding match right after that. So I'm going to PVR it, and I will be betting the Atlanta Drive again after getting a winner last night. They're -133 to win it all. Baseball fans, don't forget, all the futures are up. We hit a bunch of them today in the lock shop. We'll do some more with Pat when he joins me in the lock shop tomorrow on EST at noon. And then we'll also be making our picks for the Houston Open as well. But after last night's 19-1 banger, we're playing with house money. So let us keep it going in the lock shop. Hey, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And again, our 3-point parlay with the 2 games and the 3-game money line parlay, all up in the combo cards with a nice boost if you want to ride with us as well. That's going to do it for us. We got to get out to get down and get ready for this hockey game tonight. Can't wait for it. Tomorrow, we'll have a packed show breaking down this one and looking ahead to both Friday against New Jersey and, of course, Edmonton and Dallas tomorrow night as scoreboard watching resumes for the Winnipeg Jets after they play tonight. Should be a great one. Full house tonight. Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals in town, the top 2 teams in the NHL. Enjoy it wherever you are watching. Can't wait to be in the building tonight for this one. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks to Stephen Whyno and Jeff Hamilton, all of you for being with us today. And, of course, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Enjoy the game, and we'll catch you tomorrow on WST.
Oh, my God! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.